Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today, in this episode, I have joining me Cody George, co-founder, chief sales officer of RavenVolt. Cody, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Awesome to have you here, Cody. So I was telling Cody before we hit record on here, I'm really excited to have him on because Cody is a professional engineer. And RavenVolt, I'm really excited to hear about what you're doing there. So tell me a little bit about RavenVolt.
Yeah, so we're a turnkey microgrid EPC, which basically means we're a specialty electrical contractor. We do solar, on-site generation, so diesel, natural gas generators, utility battery systems. We design everything in-house, which is pretty unique in our industry. And then we also primarily use in-house construction crews. We're licensed in 40 states. We do work with some of the biggest brands that you've heard of. Relatively small company, started in 2020, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's another reason I want to have you on. I love having entrepreneurs on. So as I mentioned, you have this background in engineering. And I always find it fascinating listening to engineers and their perspective on selling. But tell me about your journey into sales. What drove that path for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny looking back on it because I think coming out of school, I really wanted to be an engineer. My grandpa's an engineer, professional mechanical engineer. But also when, in retrospect, when I was like 12 years old, my dad was in sales my whole life, and he would write up handwritten proposals and then hand them to me to type them out for him. And give me like $3 and a Coke with like bullet point, per unit pricing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's kind of funny how like life works its way back. But I was just really fortunate out of school, to be honest. I worked for a growing company, really fun culture, working around a lot of like really top talent folks. And so as a young engineer, I was just really eager to learn from them, to be honest. And that company was growing so quickly that they would kind of give you tasks that you didn't have the background to do, but you might have had the technical theoretic capabilities to complete them. And then if you found success, they'd kind of give you more work. I was also really fortunate to work around some really impressive sales leaders. And even though I wasn't in sales, as an engineer and then engineering manager, we did a lot of portfolio work. And so the engineer and the sales development individual were kind of like best friends, so to speak. Like we were very reliant on each other's success. And as I did it more and more, to be honest, like over time, the sales staff, or at least this is my impression, that they saw that I was pretty good at it. And so then they did less and less of the presentations, less and less of the proposal writing. And I thought to myself, man, I really enjoy this. I feel like I could be great at it. And so I left an engineering manager role and went to a VP of sales role at another company.
Yeah, that's wild. When you look back over your career, what are the three things, if you can encapsulate it into the three things that have really driven your success?
I think, for me, the most important things looking back, and I wish I kind of lucked into it, but just being a good person. Like it sounds so silly, but like doing what you say you're going to do, being honest, even if the news isn't great, being hardworking and determined, like work through challenges together as a team, like pull the team together. Be early, not on time, like all the little stuff that your parents probably told you to do. Those are the most important things in my career. Why I say that is because your network remembers. So if I did wrong by somebody 10 years ago, they're going to remember that today. Fortunately, I think for the most part, I haven't done that. And that's really what bodes well for my current career. I think following passion would be like number two. you can get a job. Like find a job that you're really passionate about. And that passion is really what's going to keep you up late at night, reading about your business on the weekends. Like I'm so passionate about what I do now that I'm almost obsessed with it. And I feel like that's a huge strategic advantage because at the end of the day, like sales is competition, like we're here to win. And so if I can out prepare my competition, and if I do that every day, all day, it's kind of like compounding interest. And so that's at least how I think about it. Like if I'm consistent on a daily basis, and I'm talking like Monday through Sunday, over a couple years, it's really hard to catch me. And that's really what I encourage my sales team to do is like be consistent with your practice. And then over time, it just like the value of that compounds. The last thing is I think sales from the outside looking in, it seems like an individual sport, but it's really a team sport, in my opinion. I am a salesperson, I am a sales leader, but I'm really nothing without the team. And to be honest, like when I look at what RavenVolt's done, or even some of my past careers that I've had, it's always comes down to how good is your team, how much are you inspiring your team to move forward, how much are you caring about your customer as a team, knowing the why, right? Like I can't sell something, again to a customer if my operations and engineering team didn't execute well for them. And ultimately, like I had control over scope, schedule, budget when I sold that first project. So it's really, really important for me to make sure that the team is aligned with what the customer's goals are and what I think we can do.
Yeah, I love your first part of those three, being nice. My kids probably get tired of me saying this to them, but growing up, I was telling them rule number one, be nice to everybody, because it pays, like you said, it pays dividends, interest, whatever you want to call it. You never know when that's going to come back in a way that's going to help you when you need it.
That's right.
And, so it's just like, and plus it's just so much better to live your life that way by just being a nice person,
100%.
It's, I can't tell you how many times, like, I tell, like, be the first one to say hi to someone. Like you're walking down the hall, just say, hey, how's it going?
Yep.
There's so many times where I see them, they look so down or whatever. And just by saying hi, they're just like, oh my gosh, they just brighten up,
That's exactly right.
I love that. I love that. So
yeah,
no, that's awesome.
It's so good for your future life and for your current life. Like you really can't lose if you're just nice to people.
Yeah, totally. So that's a big jump going from engineering manager to a VP of sales. What was that transition like for you?
It was tough. It was really tough. To make it even worse, I worked directly for the owner of the company, and I didn't realize this, but 2 weeks into me starting, he had to go out with back surgery. And so he was gone for the first month and a half.
Oh my.
And so I had to figure it out. We had just had a baby, typical life stuff going on, like
your
just pile it on.
Sucks.
Yeah. So I just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it worked. Again, I just kind of, for whatever reason, maybe it's through athletics growing up, probably my parents, but I just knew that being a sales leader was really all about the team. And so I really looked at the team, and I honestly, I think something that most sales leaders can do is just ask the team what they need, as opposed to telling them what to do. And if you ask, especially like your rock star sales talent, what they need, they're going to tell you. And if you just enable that, you're going to see tremendous growth from your team. So that's basically what I did. I just kind of came in and helped optimize the team, and different people needed different things. And then I really kind of painted a clear vision of what I thought was going to be successful for us. Because at that company, the goal of me being on board was to grow a new division. There's a lot of doubt that comes with that. One thing to remember, I think, in sales is like new people typically create change. Like they want to put their lasting mark on this new role. And so I was not greeted with open arms at all. But through determination, rallying the team together, success, like kind of proving the doubters wrong, eventually people start to see the vision. I will say though that like me going from an engineering manager role to a VP of sales role, I felt like to truly lead, you need to do. And so when you're in a sales manager position, you're really just kind of optimizing the team. There's always somebody that's doing really well, somebody that needs some help. But I never felt the pain of having a bad month, a couple bad months
Right.
as an individual contributor. And so I took a step back. So I went engineering manager, VP of sales, then I went to an individual contributor sales role because I really wanted to feel what an individual contributor salesperson feels. And I did that for about 2 years, and it was really good for my career. Now I was a good manager before, or at least I feel like I was, but I feel like I'm a much better manager because I lived that life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd imagine, because that's without having that background, like you're saying, that the just being a grunt for a while,
Yeah.
it's hard to understand what pain they're going through, what their life is really like. And you can't just sit there
Really
and say,
feel
you
it.
need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
It's
to
like,
feel it.
yeah, you gotta feel it. It's like, dude, I'm trying to do better.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that means a lot. So I would imagine that building trust is a big part of that growth, in that initial role. What were some of the things you did or that you felt you had to do to build that trust coming in, especially when they're not thrilled to see you?
Yeah, it's really tough. Like, and I don't think you can force it. Obviously, that's the goal is to develop trust, but really the trust, it comes from the other person. So like my guidance to people that are jumping into like a new role or a new sales leader role is just give it time, but try to get some early wins. Like you hear like the first 90 days, like I think that's very true. To me, the easiest way to gain trust is just to ask your team what they need. Like it's so simple, in my opinion. Obviously, you're going to put your own spin on it. You're going to see things differently. Really try to get collective buy-in too from other departments because you don't want to be like myopically focused on sales.
Right.
I think the more buy-in you can get from different divisions within your organization, the more successful it's going to be. And then again, almost like being nice, like the more fun it's going to be in your life if everybody kind of like is on the same path. Try to find some early wins, like simple stuff. Like it doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. It could be like, hey, my laptop, is a piece of junk. Can you get me a new one? Or like, I always wanted 2 computer screens, but I only have one.
Right.
Just real simple things to prove to your team that you're there to support them.
Yep.
I like to personally do goal planning with my team that's not aligned with the company. It's really more about the person. And I think happy people lead to successful businesses. And so I like to sit down with them and figure out like, hey, what are your 1 year, 5 year, 10 year goals as a person? Like what kind of lifestyle do you want? Do you want to own a home? What does your career path look like? Some people want to be forever individual contributors. Some people want to be people leaders. I've had people say that, hey, I want to get better at PowerPoint. Like, it's a wide variety of things. But if your company does goal planning, it's good to do that for the company. But I would also recommend doing some goal planning for the person and trying to enable that.
Yeah, I totally believe in that. I think it's you mentioned it earlier. It's like you have to give everybody a why.
Yep.
And to me, that goal planning is an integral part of that, developing that why.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So have you ever been in a situation where there's a trust deficit, either from past experiences or maybe market issues that are going on? Could be customers, it could be internal. Have you ever had to deal with that? And how did you recover from that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's not comfortable. It's trust takes time. That's kind of what I would say. And I mean, some of my best customers didn't trust me or my company right out the gate, but I was determined to win them over. And it was genuine. Like the ways that they didn't trust me or my organization was really just like a miscommunication. Like I feel like a lot of this is communication. And so much of today is written word. Like I really like this rule. I forget who came up with it, but it's 7-38-55. 7% is written word, 38% is tone of voice. So you add those together, you get roughly 45% of what you're trying to communicate. And then the remaining 55% is people to people. So, what's my posture look like? What am I dressed like? Did I comb my hair? All of that stuff.
Yep.
And it's so darn efficient to just do communication through written word. Send an email, shoot a text. And we've all gotten emails or text messages that we read and we thought, man, that person's really mad at me. And then you call them on the phone and you discover, oh, that wasn't their tone at all. It was just written word. And so anytime I've had a trust situation, and I'm thinking about two customers right now in my head because they're top of mind, what I did is I just got on an airplane and I went and met with them. I just flew out to wherever they were in the country and I just sat down with them. And there's a great book, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
Where they just talk about just air your grievances like right away.
Yeah.
I've found that to be a really effective way to kind of heal that trust barrier and just call it out. Hey, I made a mistake. I feel bad about it. And just own it, or, bring the issue out to light right away.
Yep.
And I think if you show somebody that you're willing to have a tough conversation in an uncomfortable environment, which is face to face, I would say that's the most uncomfortable it could possibly be. Like that's a unique person.
Right.
And it's tough to do. So that's a really good way to develop trust or like rekindle trust with somebody that they might have fallen off.
Listening to you, it sounds to me like listening is a big part of building that trust.
Absolutely.
What do you do as a sales leader to help foster and develop that skill of authentic listening in your team?
I just tell my sales team 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. So listen twice as much as you talk. And, I say it all the time. I think it's really important, especially being in sales, you're at the front end of the business,
Yep.
to really listen to what the customer cares about. And they will say something, but that's the surface level. It's what do they really care about? And there's so many examples that we could throw out there. Is like, if I told you that I really like this pen, or, I really like this car that I want to go buy. It's like, well, why do you like that car? Well,
Right.
I really like the infotainment system. Well, what about the infotainment system?
Yeah.
Well, it's really easy to adjust what my kids want to listen to. It's just,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
people will make purchasing decisions based off of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times people in sales and then people outside of sales think that, oh, well, he bought the car because it was $45,000 and he didn't want to spend 60. It's like, actually, I wanted to spend 60, but we just never talked about what I really care about. So just those little, getting past the surface and truly listening. And I really feel like 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion is just such a simple way to think about it.
Yeah. I wish someone would have told me that when I was first getting started in sales, because I thought selling was talking, and I talked. And thank God I had someone with me on a call afterwards say, hey, what did you think? Any feedback for me? And they basically said, you need to shut up. You talk way too much. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I thought that's what it's supposed to be. They're like, no, shut up. Ask a question and shut up.
Yeah. Ask them about their day. Find out about who they are as people, how they think, like what's important to them, like what's important to you, or what you think is important about their product may not be important to them. Yeah. So that's so true. That's so true.
All right, I'm asking you two-parter here. Best thing about your role as a sales leader, worst thing about your role as a sales leader?
Best part is people. People are everything. I just love the relationships that I get to build with people. I've been able to meet people from different areas of the country, different areas of the world, different cultures. I think people are just so fascinating. We're so similar, but have differences that make us unique. It's really, really fun. I think people are my favorite part about my job, to be honest. Worst part about my current, well, any managerial role, like, the hiring, the firing, performance reviews, tough feedback, all of that stuff is not fun. It's definitely not a fun part of the project, or fun part of the job, I should say. But it's really why I think if you're going to go into sales management, you really need to understand that it's not about the paycheck, it's not about the title, it's about the people.
Yep.
And so if you're really focused on developing people and seeing people like find success in their career, and that success could be them leaving your company. I've had that happen many times.
Yeah.
And so you're really sad because your job just got harder, but you're really happy for them because they just got some amazing role with some amazing company.
Yeah.
And so if you get into management for those reasons, the hiring, firing, bad feedback kind of stuff, it's such a small part. Like when you look at your day, it's such a small part of your day. It's worth it. It's worth it for sure.
Very much so. What excited you enough to make this leap to be an entrepreneur, to where now you're co-founder as well as the chief sales officer? That's a very different role than being an employee as a chief sales officer. Can you talk a bit about what excited you about RavenVolt to make that leap?
Yeah, I was so fortunate to meet the founder. His name is Jonathan Hinton on LinkedIn, and it was mid-COVID. I didn't know. I joked with my wife. It was mid-COVID. I was staying at a friend's house. We hadn't really seen anybody at this point in time, and we were camping in their backyard because we couldn't go in their house.
Right.
And so we did that Saturday night, had so much fun. I told my wife, "Hey, let's do it Sunday night too. The only thing I have tomorrow is this call with this guy, and I'm not sure if he wants to buy something from me or if he wants to interview me."
Right.
Turns out it was an interview.
Yep.
I had to borrow like my buddy's collared shirt that he got married in, dip my head in his pool for my shower. It was just hilarious. Did the interview in his garage.
Right.
And I just walked out of it Jonathan was and is very methodical, very well planned out, charismatic, smart, just a very unique person. Again, people are kind of everything with business, in my opinion.
Yep.
And so it was interesting enough for me to keep talking to him.
Yeah.
And then what really meant a lot to me was that I flew out for the interview, and it was the coolest interview I've ever been a part of. It was a 2-day interview, and we just worked together. And the company was so early stage at that point that it really was kind of like a working meeting because we were trying to figure each other out.
Right.
And I was fortunate that one of the people, and he's actually the main co-founder, his name's Eric Scanlon, that Eric had worked with Jonathan in a previous life. And so the night after the first day of interview, Eric told me that he had always hoped to work with Jonathan again, and he never knew if that would ever happen.
Right.
But this felt like it was his opportunity, and he was willing to move his family, like relocate his family to get this thing going.
Wow.
And I thought, man, if these two, really nice,
Yeah.
very intelligent, hardworking, accomplished, like everything, these two people want to work together again, I'd be kind of a fool to say no. And I didn't say no. Fortunately I said yes, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a ton of work. It's tons of stress, all the stuff that you can expect, but I really can't imagine not doing it. Like I always encourage people to bet on yourself. I feel like if you go into sales, you're betting on yourself because you're out there to go get projects. But that's the story of how it happened. I mean, it was very organic.
That's really cool. That's
really
cool.
The people.
What's your philosophy for building your team? What are you looking for when you're interviewing someone for a role on your team in a sales role?
Yeah, so we have kind of a unique philosophy here, and I give a lot of that credit to Jonathan. He's really just looking for all-stars. So we started this company. His vision quest was like the Chicago Bulls, and he was really inspired by the documentary about them, The Last Dance.
Yeah.
And so we have kind of a unique employee engagement like strategy where we're not trying to put people in chairs. We're not trying to kind of fill open positions. We're just constantly looking for all-stars.
Right.
And so if we find an all-star, we try to figure out how their background would fit well within RavenVolt. Obviously, we know positions that we need, but we're not just trying to hire just a random body. Like, we're really looking for the best of the best.
Yep.
And early on, it was really tough to get the best of the best to come to RavenVolt because we were very young, and you kind of have to find a special kind of person to join a young company.
Yeah.
But Jonathan, to his credit, was very capable of doing that over and over and over again. What I specifically look for right now, outside of just identifying all-stars, are you competitive? Are you disciplined? Discipline, I think, is a huge thing. I equate a lot of what I do at work to exercise. I like to go exercise every single day in the morning. So just the little things that add up to a lot is kind of what I'm looking for. Are you a nice person? Like, that's hard to gauge during an interview, but I try to gauge that. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. Like, you can pretty quickly figure somebody out on LinkedIn if they're using it a lot, just kind of what their personality type is, things that they're interested in. And then network, and I know LinkedIn is network, but maybe I know somebody from a previous life that knows this person, or
right.
I'm constantly looking at people that I used to work with in the past and thinking about, like, hey, would they be a good fit at RavenVolt?
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. Now, when you're getting a bunch of all-stars, that are competitive, how do you manage that and balance that to where it's not becoming a negative?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think with the company today, the company today versus the company in 5 years will be different. And so it's good to acknowledge that we're a young company. And so for us, it's not really like a famine mentality. If somebody on my team wins a big project, that helps somebody else win a big project. It's very much, I try to cultivate that team environment. And I think it's probably always true, to be honest, but I'd say it's a little bit easier to emphasize at a young organization because you're trying to really grow a business.
Right.
I'm a big fan of having different personalities on my team. Each individual is very unique in their own right. They have different sales backgrounds. Some came from engineering. Some used to work in Bitcoin, just very different personalities.
Right.
And I think mixing those different personalities together is really valuable because everybody can learn something from one another. Nobody's the best at everything.
Right.
And so just really trying to celebrate that and cultivate that as part of your culture.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. How about trust, or how do you help new players on your team establish trust within the team, so they're not upsetting the apple cart?
Yeah, trust is a big thing. I think if you're going to develop trust, you really need to lead from the front. So if you're going to ask somebody else to do something, you need to be willing to do it yourself. And if you don't necessarily know how to do it, at least be willing to learn, or have a candid interest in how that person does it, have empathy for what you're asking them to do. And I think very much me going into an individual contributor role from a sales manager role, I was able to develop a lot of that and feel what that felt like.
Right.
And so I always encourage my team to really, if I, ask an engineer, hey, I need to have a single line diagram drawn by next week. Is that even possible?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Really ask them how long does this take, and explain to them what you're really trying to do.
Right.
You might not even need that to be done for what your customer needs. So really just trying to have empathy to your team. I like to tell people you only get so many like big ass cards to spend a year, so use them wisely.
Yeah.
And so I would say I'm a pretty hands-off manager because I'm hiring personalities, I'm hiring self-motivated people.
Yeah.
And then a lot of my coaching is just trying to help facilitate the team environment, bring people together so that we can win together.
Yeah. I love listening to the great coaches like Phil Jackson, Mike Krzyzewski. Those people talk about the things that they do because they're managing big personalities. People are hyper competitive.
Yes.
And man, you really have to, it's listening, it's watching, it's observing,
Yep.
and then making small adjustments here and there as necessary. But
Yeah.
yeah, I always find it fascinating to listen to those guys.
Yeah.
Um,
One of my favorite Phil Jackson stories was when he let Rodman go to Vegas.
oh yeah, that's a great one.
And he just knew that Rodman had to do it, and Michael
Yeah,
didn't want him to do it. And
yeah,
Michael ended up having to go save him from Vegas. But
yeah.
Phil, to his credit, knew that person, like the person,
Yeah,
needed that.
he
So,
did. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a great Last Dance. That's a fascinating
wow, that's amazing.
documentary. Yeah. Can you share any personal anecdotes or experiences where prioritizing trust building led to a significant sales achievement or really
Mhm.
impacted the client relationship?
Yeah, a lot of what we do. So we don't work with a ton of customers. We work with a very finite number of customers, but we do a lot of business with that finite number. And so really I mean, that's all we're focused on is trust. And so how do we develop trust? I joke that like our strategic advantage in the market is that we say what we're going to do and then we do it. And that's kind of it. And when you think about sales, like the cost of acquisition of a new customer is so much higher than when you look at a second, third, fourth project with an existing customer. And so I would just encourage salespeople to not overcommit. And the simple things, like simple examples are like, hey, I'll get you the proposal on Friday. Friday comes around, you got to call the customer and say, that's actually Tuesday. Tuesday comes around, you actually deliver it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's your first opportunity to gain trust and you
Yeah.
missed it.
Yeah.
So make sure that what you say you can do or that your product can do or your team can do, that you can actually do it. It's okay to say no, and they're going to figure it out anyway. So
Yep.
you might as well just get to the point as quickly as possible. I would also recommend too that you don't want every job. And that sounds very odd, but there's a really experienced salesperson on my team that says fastest path to no. And I think it's really, really true.
Yeah.
So I've really encouraged my team to adopt that strategy. Like try to find reasons why you shouldn't be supporting this project. And if you find those reasons, just let the customer know.
Yeah.
It's a better use of your customer's time. It's a better use of your time. Really using that fastest path to no strategy, it helps you identify all the yeses. And that's really where you want to spend most of your time. Let your
Yeah.
competition deal with all the no's.
Right.
Focus on the yeses.
Yeah. And it's also, I find that sometimes when you get to that no, a lot of times you're helping the customer reframe their
Mhm.
ask. They're like,
Yep.
hey, you know what? I guess I didn't really understand what I was really asking for. What if we do this?
Yep.
And
Totally agree.
you're really you're putting yourself in a totally different role, a different relationship with the customer, and
Yes.
you're able to do that.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't be so focused on today. If you say no today, 2 years from now, that customer might come back to you and it's a yes,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you say yes today and it ends up being a no, they're going to remember that.
Yeah.
So time is like our most valuable asset. Like, don't waste your customers' time. Don't waste your time.
Yeah. You bet. CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it for what it should be used for. I dislike it for what it oftentimes is used for. And
Yeah.
so, in my opinion, what CRM should be used for is really to like best utilize your day. So focus on the tasks that are most important today. Um, like I preach like fastest path to revenue with my sales team, like always
Yeah.
focus on things that impact today first, because you probably have like 10, maybe 100 things that you should do today, but focus
Yeah.
on the critical stuff that's
Yep.
happening today. And I think CRM can do that.
Yep.
Um, we at my sales team, everybody's seen like dashboards and scoreboard, whatever you want to call it. So we kind of celebrate the scoreboard. So I encourage my team to really look at the all-star performers, because there's
Right.
always an all-star, there's always somebody that's fallen behind.
Yep.
So the person that's fallen behind, they're a great salesperson. What's that all-star doing?
Right.
There's something in there that all-star is doing that you could be doing. And if you adopt that into your portfolio, guess what? You're going to be an all-star. You're obviously going to do it in a little bit different way. But I was always taught to use dashboards as means to ask questions, not a means to make a decision. And so I think sometimes CRM can be utilized as like a means to make a decision, when in reality, I would encourage managers to ask questions off of CRM.
Right.
So that's why I have this kind of like love, hate.
Yeah, no, I get it. I always like, to me, the worst thing you do with the CRM is use it as a stick
Yep.
to hit people.
Yep.
You will completely undercut your whole goal and the reasons why you implemented the CRM in the first place.
Yep.
In
my opinion, a real simple CRM is perfect. You don't need a lot of things in there, because if you have a lot of things you got to fill out, that's just more things that I got to do today. Make it real simple for your sales team. Have it like acquire the data that's really important to your business and for them.
Yep.
And then that CRM is super useful. If it's got a bunch of data in there and it's not being used by anybody, just get rid of the data.
100% agree. It's a tool to enable the salespeople. It is not a tool. I mean, there are parts of it that can help executive leadership, where they have insight into what's going on in the business and all that.
Absolutely.
That's a benefit. That's not the purpose.
100%.
And trying to get organizations to understand that, I think, is really important. That the main purpose of this is to enable salespeople. It's also to help enable the customer relationship. That I think it's really important that that selling process is core to CRM, but then it's what's all the stuff you have to do now that you've won that contract, you've won that customer. What are we going to do now to really give them an incredible experience?
That's exactly correct.
Yeah. Can you talk about that in terms of how you guys leverage CRM to support that? Are you guys good at that? Is that something you struggle with? What's your experience around that?
Yeah, we just actually hired a consultant to help us get better at that, because I 100% agree with what you just said. All of these decisions that we made during the sales process, we need to capture that for the execution team. All those, it's never the big commitments, it's always the small commitments, in my opinion, that get missed.
Yep.
Simple things like, I don't know, payment terms, something that you threw in that was important to the, whatever it is, just it's all the small stuff.
Yep.
And so we actually just hired a consultant to help bring our CRM instance to a better level.
Yeah.
We intentionally, in the beginning of RavenVolt, we didn't hyper program our CRM to do a bunch of fancy things that I know most CRM, software can do, because our business was so new. And so over time, we've kind of learned and kind of followed the market, followed our customers, kind of figured out where we sit in the market.
Yep.
So we understand that a lot better now. And then at that point in time, like, tailor the CRM. I think what you said is like tailor it around your customer.
Yes.
Always focus. I mean, we forget about it, but it's the most important part. So yeah, we're actually going through
the C, right?
now.
It's the C in CRM. And it amazes me how much I come in when we, a company will engage us to help them. And I'll ask them, oftentimes their perspective on CRM is how it's internal. It's support what we do. It's not external about the customer. And I think they're missing something when they do that.
Completely agree.
Cody, we're at our time here on Sales Lead Dog. I really, really appreciate you coming on. I could talk to you for a long time, I think. But we are at time here. If people want to reach out, connect with you, they want to learn more about you or learn more about RavenVolt, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm huge on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Just shoot me a connect message. RavenVolt's on LinkedIn. We're big on that throughout the board. Our website's pretty light, I would say. We're working on making it better. There was a lot of strategy to having it very light in the beginning. We wanted it to be kind of semi-stealth mode is what we called it.
Right.
But yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you.
That's awesome. So be sure to check out, we'll have Cody's LinkedIn information in our show notes. It'd also be easy to just go out and do a search and find them there. But if you want to check out the show notes, you can find that in pellercrm.com/sales lead dog. where you'll find not only this episode, but all our 100+ episodes of Sales Lead Dog. So be sure to check that out. And be sure to subscribe and follow us so you can catch all the episodes. Cody, again, thank you for coming on Sales Lead Dog, and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been really fun.
Awesome.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.